my name is Annie and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about Star Trek the original series and where to begin watching. So a lot of my friends who've never seen Star Trek always ask me, where do I begin? There's so much Star Trek, it can be very overwhelming. It's been going on for over 50 years. It has 5 shows. In my mind, there are only 5 Star Trek shows. So today I'm going to be talking about 5 episodes you can begin watching the original series with. Without further ado, let's get into it. So before I begin, I just want to note that Star Trek the original series is episodic, so that means that every episode has its own contained arc, and you could start watching the show at any point really. And that for me is one of the beauties of Star Trek. It really is all about the crew and the characters who are there and how they interact with new situations and how they interact with each other. Number 1 on my list is in season 1, episode 14, and it's called The Conscience of the King. The Conscience of the King is a really well written episode, and at its center it has Captain Kirk dealing with a moral issue that he hasn't dealt with before, and a question of how to interact with the past and how to deal with something that happened long ago in the present. And I think it's very important when first starting to watch the original series to really understand who Captain Kirk is and understand his character, because he really is, as the captain, the essence of the ship, and all the characters rely on him for everything, and all the relationships really go around Captain Kirk. And this episode has a lot of very Kirk things happening. He's strong-headed, he's stubborn, he's a natural leader, he's a ladies' man. We see him flirting a lot, and that's fine with me. William Shatner will always be a crush of mine. It's very well written, it's very unexpected, and it's very wonderful to watch. So I highly recommend that episode. Number 2 on my list is called The Devil in the Dark, and it's season 1, episode 26. If I had to pick one episode that represents Star Trek, I think I'd pick this one in all of Star Trek, because it really has at its core the central issue of Star Trek, which is to seek out new life. And it really shows that it is not as easy of an issue as we might expect from just hearing it every single episode in the intro. It shows that humanity might not be even as advanced as it is in the 23rd century in Star Trek. Humanity might not be ready to find things that are so completely unknown and so different from us. Apart from having that question at its center, it also has amazing interactions between Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, and especially Spock has the center stage in this episode, and Spock is one of my favorite characters of all time, and it really shows how Spock has both a Vulcan side and a human side, and how he uses logic and his, without admitting, emotions to solve a problem and to connect with something that humans, purely humans, might not be able to connect to. So I think that's a very Star Trek episode, and if you're just getting into it, it's very important to understand what Star Trek is all about, and I think that's an episode that represents that really well. Number 3 on my list is The City on the Edge of Forever, and I remember first watching this episode and just being completely blown away by it. It is one of my favorite episodes of all time, and for a long time, I couldn't really pinpoint why it was such a marking episode, why it made me stop and remember when everyone asked, what's your favorite episode? I usually say The City on the Edge of Forever, and I think now it's because it deals with something that is very classically science fiction and a very classic theme of time travel, but it deals with it through the lens of emotions, and what do you do when you form an emotional connection with something from the past? What do you do when you know what's right and what you would like to do? And throughout that episode, we also get Kirk and Spock interacting together, without McCoy this time. And though I love McCoy very much, the friendship between Kirk and Spock really is the one that drives the show. And we get to see them interacting, how their friendship works, because they're very different, but they are so close, and they really complete each other in many ways. So I think that's a great episode to learn how their relationship works. And as a bonus, Joan Collins is in this episode, which is just fantastic. This is Joan Collins. So, yeah. Number 4 on my list is an episode that you really can't ignore when talking about Star Trek the original series. It's iconic, it's been reproduced in pop culture many times. If you're a Star Wars fan and played KOTOR, Gizka might be the name you know for this. But this episode is called The Trouble of Tribbles, and it's in Season 2, Episode 15. This episode is just a joy. There's no other way to put it. The Trouble of Tribbles is a joy to watch. It's hilarious, it's outrageous, it's bonkers, but it's Star Trek. If you're not, like, into the heavy moral questions of what's right, what's wrong, what do you do in the situation, and if you want a light-hearted episode that will make you laugh and will get you in the spirit of Star Trek, this is the one I go with. Not only has the main trio, but Scotty is super funny in it, Chekhov is amazing, Uhura is brilliant in it, and it also has Klingons. And Klingons, if you've only seen the new movies or that new show we're not going to mention, they're very different from what they're portrayed in the new Star Trek content. They are funny, they are very stubborn, so it's very worth watching this episode just for a fun, lighthearted episode that will also make you understand what Trek is all about, because Trek is about being funny and being campy. And yeah, so I highly recommend The Trouble with Tribbles. How could I not? It's great. And the last episode on my list, it's The Naked Time. And this is one of the very first episodes in Season 1. It's episode 5. And this episode falls in the category of a meme episode, which is what me and my brother like to call them, which they're just hilariously bad, but also good in a way that only Star Trek really can achieve, because it's outrageous but also very, very fun, and we get to see characters acting in ways we wouldn't normally see because of a mysterious reason that you only find out if you watch the episode. But we get to see Sulu being very funny, we get to see Spock being emotional, we get to see things that we don't usually see, and because it's so early on in the show, I think it's a great episode to start with, because you learn how the characters are and how they're not, and how they hide parts of themselves sometimes that they don't want to show to the world, but those parts are there. So I think it's a great episode to learn more about the crew of the Enterprise and learn about how they interact with each other. And it's also hilarious. So another lighthearted episode if you were more into those. So yeah, these are my top 5 episodes for beginners in Star Trek, the original series. These are not necessarily my top 5 favorite episodes. Like, Amok Time is one that is missing from this list, which I think is great, but it really it requires the viewer to have a relationship with the characters and to know who the characters are, so the viewer can really enjoy the episode. Mirror Mirror is not in this list, but I love it so much. And then there are some crazy episodes. This Side of Paradise is really fun. The Way to Eden is outrageous. Space Seed has Khan in it. So while I love all these episodes, that doesn't mean they're the best episodes to start watching with. So if you want to start watching Star Trek, I highly recommend these 5 episodes. I think they're great introductory episodes to get you acquainted with not only the characters, but also the mechanics of the show. And I hope you love it as much as I do. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed watching, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe to my channel. I will be bringing you more content like this, not only on Star Trek, but also Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, video games, medieval literature, whatever pops into my head really. And I hope you stick around. Thank you so much for watching.